Joining us now is Sean Spicer. He's the Chief Strategist and Communications Director for the Republican National Committee. Sean, thanks for joining us.
You bet, Wolf.
Do you accept the findings released today by the Director, James Comey?
I mean, I guess, sure, but I guess I'm as baffled now as I was in July, which is he, in his July findings, enumerated what would be considered gross negligence back then, and since then what we've learned is that that information was on Anthony Weiner's laptop, that he was sexting with young underage women. Additionally, we've now found out that Hillary Clinton's maid was tasked to print off classified information, something that she clearly didn't have the clearance for. So, you know, I'm equally baffled today as I was in July when Director Comey laid out the case of Hillary Clinton's actions and then came to a conclusion that didn't meet the standard of gross negligence that he had laid out.
But do you have confidence that the FBI director is doing the right thing, that he should stay on the job?
I don't. It's not up to the communications director for the RNC to decide whether or not the FBI director should stay or not. But I do think that as we enter the final 48 hours of the election, that it's important for people to understand that really nothing's changed. The FBI said in July that Hillary Clinton was reckless, that she had met the standard for gross negligence, and I think that what we've seen since then continues that narrative. And if you are a voter going out right now and think that the first 4 years of a Clinton presidency would be anything different than the last 30 years, especially the last 6 months, then I think you got another thing coming to you. So I don't know that this really changes anything. We clearly know that Hillary Clinton did not abide by the rules that were set forth at the time. And we continue to learn more and more about that. And I think that there's a lot of voters that have had their choice impacted by the admission of how she handled classified information.
The FBI director in July said that Hillary Clinton was extremely careless, reckless, if you will, in dealing with the classified information on her private email server. But his bottom line conclusion was that no reasonable prosecutor would recommend criminal charges against her. Yes, she was careless, but no criminal charges. He reiterated that today, so the conclusion that he reached in July still holds today after reviewing the hundreds of thousands of emails found on Anthony Weiner's computer. And that's with only 2 days to go. Was it appropriate in the middle of a presidential election, within 60 days of an election, for the FBI director even to be making these kinds of statements? You know, the tradition is that Justice Department officials, FBI officials, don't comment on politically sensitive matters so close to a presidential election.
Well, first, I'm not sure I completely agree. 1992, the Clintons benefited when Cap Weinberger was indicted days before the election. Subsequently, did not move forward, was found innocent, if you will. So when it benefited the Clintons, they didn't have a problem then in 1992 when it benefited then subsequently President Clinton. But at the end of the day, all of this stems from Hillary Clinton's actions, Wolf. This wasn't made out of whole cloth. It was her decision to have a private server. It was her decision to lie about the emails. It was her decision to self-select those emails. It was her decision to talk about the lack of classified information. It was her decision to bleach it. It was her decision to hammer those devices, literally with a hammer. So all of this stems from her actions, which the director said were reckless and met the standard of gross negligence. So if new evidence comes forward, I don't care if it's 5 hours before an election, all of this stems from her and her associates mishandling and not being honest with the facts of what they had done.
Yeah, but he didn't recommend criminal charges in July. Today, after reviewing these new emails, he's still not recommending criminal charges.
But I also think
the FBI.
I also believe that it is not accurate. I mean, we have seen case after case of individuals who have mishandled, misused classified information that have been prosecuted and punished. And so for the FBI director to come to that conclusion, I just don't understand it. I really don't. I'm baffled by it.
His argument has been that in those other cases there was intent. The individuals who were charged and convicted knew they were mishandling classified information. In this particular case, he says there was no intent on the part of Hillary Clinton.
That's one part.
That's the difference that he makes.
Right, but there's two parts to that. There's intent, and then there's gross negligence. And gross negligence, as defined, is someone who should have had a reasonable expectation of knowing what they were doing was wrong. As the Secretary of State, you believe You would know that when you set up a classified server and after repeated attempts by your aides.
He did address the issue. He did address the issue of gross negligence, and there are ways to convict someone. He says no prosecutor would go forward on that gross negligent point.
But that's
what
not
the FBI director, James Comey, said in his sworn testimony to Congress.
I understand that, but unfortunately, it is unprecedented for the FBI director to make that decision. Their job at the FBI is to collect evidence and present it to the Department of Justice to decide whether or not to prosecute. He went a step further and made that decision on behalf of the Department of Justice. Obviously, they still have the right to move forward. They're moving forward with an investigation in the Clinton Foundation, so they continue to investigate. But the fact of the matter is that he did take an unprecedented step in making that decision, which frankly wasn't his to make.
Well, he made that recommendation, and Loretta Lynch, the Attorney General, the Deputy Attorney General, they accepted that recommendation from the FBI director. That's the way he explained it.
I understand that, and you do know, or you're well aware, but I think it's odd that this came on the heels of the Attorney General meeting for 25 minutes on a tarmac with former President Bill Clinton right before that decision was made. So we can believe or understand how people are a little bit wary of how these decisions got made.
Sean Spicer, the Communications Director, Chief Strategist for the Republican National Committee, thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks, Wolf.